Okay, class, instead of doing the original homework, page 660 from the old textbook, we're going to do this. So I want you to watch this video and take notes in your class notes. So right now you should open your class notes section. At the top of the new page, you're going to write integers and absolute value. We're just going to take a step back and make sure we know all of these things really well, and then we will come back to adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing integers. Okay? Alright, let's start with positive and negative numbers. I'm pretty sure all of you guys know what positive and negative numbers are. An example of a positive number is a gain of 20 yards. So the number that would be represented here in this scenario is positive 20. If I were to say 10 feet below sea level, this would represent a negative number. This would represent negative 10. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about opposites. I know we mentioned it in class. Opposites are the same distance from zero, but they're on different sides of zero. So if I have a number line, and I want to know the opposite of 4, all I have to do is go the same distance from 0, but in the opposite direction, and land on negative 4. So negative 4 and 4 are opposites of each other. The same thing occurs if I want the opposite of negative 2. Negative 2 is 1, 2 distance to the left of 0, so I need to find the distance to the right of 0, 2 units. 1, 2. Positive 2 is the opposite of negative 2. Okay, so if you have an example and it says graph each integer and its opposite on a number line, this is what you do. For instance, we have example 1 is 3. So to graph an integer on a number line, all I do is put a point at the intersection. In order to graph the opposite of negative 3, all I need to do is put a dot, a point at the intersection of these two lines. Okay, moving on to the next review topic is absolute value. Absolute value, make sure you have this in your notes, is the distance on a number line from 0. The key in there is distance. So the absolute value of negative 3 is positive 3. The absolute value of positive 5 is positive 5. You can never have a negative absolute value. It's always going to be positive because it's always the distance from 0. Now let's compare in order numbers, integers. Number 1 is pretty simple. Negative 4, negative 5. You need to use either less than, greater than, or equal to. This is just like one of the warm-up problems we had. Number 2, we have 9, 0, negative 1, negative 7, negative 6. You need to put these in order from least to greatest. Then on number 3, we have negative 39, negative 18, negative 19. Same thing applies here. You need to order these from least to greatest. So I want you to do these 3 examples, these problems, in your class notes, and we will go over them tomorrow. The last thing we're going to talk about in this little video is negative rational numbers. Some examples of rational numbers could be 2/10, it could be 1/2, it could be 75%. So these are all representations of negative rational numbers. Okay, now I'm going to give you a few problems to compare using the same signs, less than, greater than, or equals to. The first one I'm going to give you is negative 2/3 and negative 1/2. Which is it, less than, greater than, or are they equal to? Okay, here's your next one to try. Number 2, negative 2/10 is less than, greater than, or equal to negative 2. Okay, the way we look at this is I compare the greatest place value first. Since they're both negative, I like to line them up, like this. Okay, they're both negative. So then I look here, 2 is greater than 0. So if I think of a number line, -2 is here, 0 is here, and I know 2/10 is somewhere pretty close to 0. We'll say -2/10 is somewhere in here. So I know that -2/10 is greater than -2. Alright, here's the last example for the night. -2/5 is less than, greater than, or equal to -4/10. Okay, you should have that in my notes, so let's quickly recap. Okay, in your notes section, you should have integers and absolute value at the top. You should have an example of a gain of 20 yards is a positive number, and then 10 feet below sea level equals a negative number. You should have had written opposites as the same distance from 0, but on different sides of 0. You need to have an example of graphing opposites on a number line in your class notes. You also really need to have the absolute value is the distance from 0 on a number line and a few examples. And then you should have had the answers to 1, 2, and 3 when we were comparing and ordering integers. You need to have the different representations of negative rational numbers, as well as 1, 2, and 3 examples. We will talk about this in class. We will do more practice in class, and hopefully this will not be as confusing. We'll take a step back, and we will come all the way back to the operations with rational numbers. See you tomorrow.